Welcome to This Podcast Needs a Name. The podcast's so creative, we couldn't even name it. I'm your host, Lee Allentuck, and if you heard us laughing, it's because we started talking already, and this is going to be a fun episode. I'm really excited. It's all about creativity across very different scales, from toys you can hold in your hand to ideas that stretch way out into outer space and into the future. I'm joined by two incredibly creative, fun, and entertaining people who design for Wonder, and they just happen to be in different arenas. But first, my guest is a good friend. I've known him for years, and he's one of my go-to people when I need advice or to be talked off the ledge. He's a former Apple designer turned inventor whose toys and games and experiences spark all kinds of curiosity and creativity. And he's my good friend, Jordan Goddard. Hey, Jordan.
Hey, hello, Lee. Ooh, round of applause.
Yeah, round of
That was
applause.
all right.
Golf
All
clap.
right,
Come
cool.
on.
I
like
should have
I
lost the
clap.
script
I
years
don't
ago. And then my other guest, because we have to have two guests, because I'm too chicken to do this by myself. The former curator and creative director of NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab and founder of the David Delgado Design Studio. This is like one of the most intriguing guests I've ever had. And no offense to you, Jordan, you're pretty intriguing too.
Well,
But his life,
Thanks for the first
his
intro,
life
the
work
initial intro.
is literally designing the future of at a cosmic level, blending science, art, and empathy. And I'm so excited to dig in because we've talked many times, never face to face, never screen to screen. So, David Delgado, welcome.
yeah, thanks. Really good. Really glad to be here. Yeah.
This is honestly, I was looking forward to this all day. Well, for actually, I think we've put it on for like 2 weeks. We've been talking about doing this, so it's pretty exciting because you guys live in similar worlds in the world of creativity. You're really thinking about things in the future. Jordan, you with play experiences and things like that. David, give us a little bit of snippet of what your job was at Jet Propulsion, because I don't even think I even
But yeah.
really well.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, well, it's sort of I can sum it up. The titles are always kind of funky at JPL because they
That's a
always
great
choose
title.
different things. But yeah. But I mean, in general, it was about
Yeah.
education, design, and art to communicate the ideas that are happening inside the missions, why they're interesting, why they might have value in people's lives, and that includes just the process of scientific thinking and curiosity and all of that. And so in some ways it was just really kind of promoting curiosity and wonder and like what you can get when you ask questions and try to achieve hard things. And so sometimes I started out in the world of education and then went into the design and art side, really trying to create things that I just call it fueling the fire for the engineers and the scientists. And so basically I was a visual strategist and then became a cultural strategist. And when you say cultural strategist, it just meant creating things that really helped people become more attracted to the work that everybody has gathered there to do, which is explore space.
So
with
like
robots.
How do I follow that, Lee?
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming, Jordan. Good to see you,
Well,
man.
actually,
Nice
it's
hat.
funny.
It's a good hat. Yeah.
It's funny though, because like when I look at you two, I'm like, how can I become a toy designer?
Yeah, it's
That's
so
what I
much
wanna
easier
do.
than rockets.
Seriously? You
Yeah.
can throw a rock and hit something, and that's a toy designer right there.
Well, I mean, don't be confused for a second. So, like, I always say I worked with all the smart people, not that wasn't one of the.
Yeah, but they
all
couldn't
the.
draw a picture, right? So they had to come to you to get their vision done, right?
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the good things. But
But
yeah, really special place.
So I mean, that's a great jumping off point to Jordan, right? Like you went from you were in Apple for a while doing design there, and you became a toy inventor, right? Like you made this bold leap. Like how and knowing what I know about the industry, why would you go into the toy and game industry?
Right. Well, okay, like I can give you like the really like linear answer, which is I led a team for a while. That team, like you know how teams all have their own kind of cultural dynamics and things that are important to some teams that are than others. So one of the things that was really important to us was birthdays. We always made a big, like comically large, big deal of birthdays. And one of the guys on my team loved board games. I actually did not know much about like toys and games at the time, and but I became passionate about it because he was passionate about it, and his birthday was coming up, and so we all got together and we designed a game for him, and then had it printed and gave it to him for his birthday. And I like really enjoyed that because when you design or make things in a corporate environment, there are so many constraints and justifiable constraints, but like you don't get very and you're always doing them as part of a team, and so you don't get a lot of times to just like flex individual creative muscle a ton because you're always kind of doing it on the clock. This was one of those really unique experiences where I got to do kind of whatever we wanted, and I brought my work home with me, and my wife and I like worked on this game on our free time, and we fell in love with the process. So then we just decided to do it again. But the next time we tried to publish it, and then it published, and then we tried to do it again, and then so every year for a while we would just do them in our free time, and then finally I came home and said, I'm tired of making money. Let's spend it, and we risked everything and opened a toy shop, and so here we
No
are.
way. Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
only good thing I ever got from my birthday in the corporate world was like a lunch at Chipotle, and
We would have done right by you,
I
Lee. I
love
promise.
Chipotle, but that's way better. Getting your own game made after you.
Well, we used to go pretty crazy. We went hard in the paint on birthdays, but this was the one that stuck and like now has dictated my life's direction. So I should, that's how that came to be. But yeah, ever since my wife and I started a toy design studio, and we've been fortunate enough to hire a few people, and now we're just making games and toys all the time.
That's it's well done because I think just knowing what you've done in that short amount of time. How many years have you been doing this now?
Five. This
Just
is
5 years. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we're starting our fifth. Yeah, yeah, right at 5 years. Yeah.
All
So
right. So
thanks.
so let's talk a bit about that creative process that you both go into. Right. It's I imagine there's an intimidation level that you get into in starting an endeavor, right? So whether it's inventing a new play experience or envisioning the future or creating something out of the blue or taking somebody else's vision, which probably can be just as challenging, and putting it into some sort of creative framework. How do you approach that from a practical standpoint? Where do you start, David?
Well, it's kind of interesting because a lot of the projects I would start with, they would come in and somebody would, say, hey, how can we get people to think about our mission, or we want to do something about such and such a mission. And most of the time I would have no idea what the sort of the details of what they were talking about. So the big beginning point for me was just listening and trying to understand what they were doing, and trying not to be shy about asking a lot of dumb questions, because apparently I'm great at that. But that's sort of what it took for me, because for me, I need to get things on like a really basic level for my creativity to start jamming. I just need to understand it in simple terms and get rid of all of the lingo and the jargon and just go, oh, it's going to do this. And then that helps me quite a bit because then I
The
can just,
translating that engineering side is that a skill set that you picked up or had, or is it just like how do
And
you?
can you
'Cause I've
teach it
worked
to
with
me?
engineers. I mean,
yeah, well, I'm sure. Well, that's the thing, Jordan. I think we all speak. It's just a different language, like it's obviously the same language speaking English, but all the words and things like that and the nuances of what they mean.
yeah.
Um, it's this ongoing process of trying to decode that for me, and so no, yeah, that's part of the stupid question series that I would ask. I'm like, what do you mean by that acronym, and what does that mean again? And
Oh, yeah. You
that kind
didn't
of
have
stuff. So,
Chat GPT or anything to translate stuff
yeah,
either.
no,
What
no,
was
no.
like this? This is like an offshoot of the question, but like, do you have a question, a dumb question that you asked that you're just like in awe that you asked, or that you wish you could they either startle the room or you wish you could take back or anything?
It- Well, actually, yeah. I mean, that's one of the ones that I ask for everything. Eventually this comes out, and sometimes it keeps people catches people off guard. But it's really useful for me. It's why should anybody care about what you're doing? And that people are like, well, you know, but most people are not like, oh, everybody should automatically care. But it's really helpful to know that because it helps me understand why I should care, you know, if it's not, and sometimes the answer that they give is different than the reason why I think I already care. And then you're like, oh, okay, so you get a chance to kind of understand things from their perspective, what they care about and what's special to them, you know. And that's a big part of what I try to lean into, is so to make sure that people feel that, you know, why they care.
That's such a foundational question, and I would imagine that more often than not, what they think people care about isn't necessarily what they really care about. It might be in their mind what they're thinking is like important, but you're the translator, right? You're the person who's got to like make sure that the people writing the checks or the people that are supporting this will actually care, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, yeah, yeah, I mean, it really is it's really a big deal to me to like see to create something that people can care about, you
Yeah.
know, because then it's in a world where it's hard to measure outcomes and stuff like that when you're making things for people, and you know, if you don't have some complex survey for them to you know, interact with or something like that, you can just watch them and you can tell whether they like it or not, whether they care or not. And I think that's just a big measure of uh, success for, you know, for me and for my colleagues and things like that. We want to connect with people emotionally. So if they don't care and they just look at it and walk away, and then we're like, ah, dang it, you know?
A swing and a miss. Jordan,
Yeah.
and your side of it, I imagine that's a big part of it. I mean, you're selling consumer products, you're selling play experiences, finding out why people care or
Well,
why.
yeah, I was gonna say like it's remarkably similar to David's answer, right? Because the why should someone care is vitally important when you have old hands making things for small minds, right? Like it's really matters because like we don't have access to, you know, the synapses they do. Like they're just different. They're connected differently. Like, you know, as much as we can empathize or call ourselves kids at heart, we're not kids. Like, and we have to remind ourselves that like we aren't the right brains to assess whether this is right or not. We have to get it into the people who will. I'm a parent of two kids, a 6 and an 8-year-old, but I am one parent in one part of the world. There are a lot of people that are parents, and like so, finding out what matters to them, and then navigating the long chain of stakeholders. Why this should matter varies depending on which room you're in. Like when I'm presenting to, you know, the buyer, you know, at Walmart, that's very different than why I'm telling the mom that this is easy to clean up. Like it's just so like navigating the many levels of why should someone care really matters, and not taking your own instincts. Like there are so many things that I think are cool that a 6-year-old does not care about. Like, you know, so like I can and so many times I'll design something and like make it just perfect in my brain, and I'll show it to somebody and they'll just go like, this doesn't matter at all considering like what this person's into or what the, you know, core demographic is for this. So it's
Dude,
constantly being
wait,
the
wait until they're teenagers because you're in
yeah.
a whole world
I
of
got
hurt.
my hands full today,
Yeah.
Lee. Thank you. But no, constantly like being the dumbest person in the room matters. Removing yourself from your ego, constantly reminding yourself that you're doing something that you're not I'm not the key demographic here. I'm selling to a 6-year-old and making sure that like it looks right to them and is intriguing to them. You know, we just got through a 3-year design process on a game that it's
Oh,
on
wow.
shelves now, so I can actually talk about it, I think. But it was the reason it kept failing was because the core characters in the game were edamame, right? They were little cute little beans, little soybeans, and it just never took root. And the reason was not enough kids know what edamame is. Like they don't know. Like they don't, like if you go to the middle America or you go to the wrong coast, they just don't eat edamame, and so it just never landed. And then we changed it to little pizza characters, and it took off, and now it's on shelves, and Hasbro launched it, and so it's great.
Spoiled by soybeans,
I
man.
know, if I had a nickel for every time. But just reminding yourself that look, you got to know who the right person has to get it, and the right person isn't always the person designing it. So
Well, and that's going to your audience, right? And I think David, you touched on this as well, is that you do want to have that connection with the person on the other side of the table or the other side of the experience. You know, I think as creatives, do you guys consider yourself creatives? Would you say I'm a creative?
I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I
On
think
my good days, I am.
I'm the least creative in this group by far. And when you
Don't
guys
that
talk about
No,
the
don't do
dumbest in
that.
the room, I made a
Yeah.
career on that. So, that was kind of my thing. But it was, I guess my question is for you on this is like, what's misunderstood about being a creative? What do people, when you talk to them, how do they misunderstand about what you do for a living or how you create? Like, is there anything that sort of jumps out when you're at a dinner party or
I'm
talking
gonna
to
jump in on
someone?
this first because I
Yeah.
just because I have a pat line that I want to get out before David says something smart. No, I like
You want to be the
that.
dumbest in the room, man? Go ahead.
Here's
It's
here's
the
the
run to the
thing.
bottom.
Here's the thing we say often: creativity is a skill; it's not a talent. Like you build it over time.
Read.
You learn to trust the process. You learn to know when it looks terrible that you're almost there. Like it's just like you gotta. It is a skill that we all build over time. Some people it comes more naturally to them, but no one does not have access to it. That would be what I would say.
Yeah. Totally agree. Everybody's creative. It's this incredible capacity. I would say that wait, what was your question, Lee, again? I
You
totally
can go
forgot.
ahead.
I want to answer the right
No, it's
thing.
really about what the misunderstandings or misconceptions of what you do, or why.
Or
Oh,
about what
You
creativity is.
about creativity?
Did Jordan shock you that much with his
I did,
answer?
yeah. I'm like,
Like,
Or I
oh my
just
gosh,
answered
how
the
did
wrong
I follow
question.
that?
I just
or
have a
David's trying to be the dumb one in the room. Like it's a contest between the three of us.
Normally I don't have to try about
No, all right.
that.
You have books behind
Um,
you. I have like a
yeah, see, that's how
yeah.
smart. See, look at that
You're so
smartness.
smart. Look at these guys. They look
But
like old
yeah,
books.
so I guess one of the things that it's actually kind of funny because I kind of group myself into the larger group of like people because I'm constantly sometimes when I need to focus and I need to get something done, I want to kind of go at it and just really kind of put everything into it. And sometimes I realize that that actually is not what it takes. It takes time where you might, think about it for a little bit, but then like walk away, and go do something else. And like I have to continuously remind myself that grinding is not gonna get me to that place. So, which is I think my natural tendency is I'm just gonna like grind at it and then it's gonna happen. But I notice that most of the time, like 99% of the time, the things that I'm happy with happen when I just leave the table or I'll go for a drive or I walk and sometimes it's when I'm not doing it that a lot of times the creative solutions will pop up and I just let the problems sit in my head and I kind of stew over them or do different tasks associated with it but that it's I guess maybe the answer is that it's not a linear process, right? It's like you
That is
can't.
such a good point. There, you cannot draw a straight line from effort to outcome. And if
Yeah.
you work from home, your spouse needs to really understand that sometimes sitting on the couch staring at the ceiling is the hardest
Yes.
work you'll do all day.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
It's really true. Like convincing the
Yeah.
world you're working is part of the job.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I
Yes.
take a lot of walks during the day. I walk the dog. He's probably the most walked dog in our entire state. And it's like it's to get out. It's like to get out of this little box I'm in all day. And if I don't walk him or do something outside the house, I literally go days without leaving because I'm like focused and doing other things. So yeah, I totally believe that. And I think Stephen King was like in his book on writing talks about like write and put it in a drawer and leave it. Just leave it for a set amount of time till you come back and figure it out.
I have that book right next to me. I'm trying to find that. I love that book.
That would have been
King on
classic.
Writing.
You
So
pulled it. If
good.
you both turned around and it was right there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
don't
have it
have
with
it.
me, but it's
No,
a good one.
it's good.
It's
I'll
really
send
good.
it to you. It's a great book. I'm a big fan of his and his writing and his process. And I don't think I could ever step up to write like he writes literally every day, and no matter what. So that's a bit of a grind itself. But so talk a little bit about some of those constraints that you guys have. I have always said that like designing in a box is much better than designing kind of out in the open without any constraints. Do you guys feel that same way that you need that constraint to be more creative, or is it limiting, or like what constraints do you put on yourself?
Ooh. So I think it's true 99% of the time. like, there, like that when you have constraints, it forces you to be more creative. That when you look at like infinite options, it's much more challenging to come up with something that's creative. And I think there's a direct relationship to that, because if you can have anything, you don't need to be creative, right? But if you can't have everything you need, you must be creative with what you have. So like by nature, having more options reduces creativity, because it's just, you no longer need to do it. However, there are times when we have to hit a $1.45 cost of goods, and I would kill for an extra 15 cents to solve a problem. So it's like, it really depends.
That's exactly the kind of constraint I was talking about.
Yeah. Like,
Budget, right?
I often would dream of the kind. Well, not that NASA gets a quarter of the budget it should, but like I would love to have the kinds of zeros you have to play with sometimes. But I know that, like, given your constraints are probably very similar. But like, yeah, I think almost always constraints are better. But every once in a while, if you do this long enough, it does get a little annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, it's just knowing the constraints. That's like that's the big one, because then sometimes you'll bump in it. You're like, well, I didn't know that was a constraint. And then you have to kind of
that would have been a
deal with
good
it.
dumb question at the beginning, right?
Yeah. Like, what are the full? Sometimes they pop up. And
But
then, like, on the
your
majority of
job
our
was
projects-
literally the sky's the limit, right? You're looking at literally,
No, actually, it was
no.
really, because I mean, not really. I mean, it was sort of like everything was a shoestring budget. I mean, we were just trying to figure out, like, how do we do that? And then a lot of times when I say we, it was myself and a small group of people at JPL. We called ourselves a studio and the creative studio. They kind of changed names over time. And but it's kind of funny because we always wanted to swing for the fences and do all this, big project and cool stuff. And then we'd find, we'd so unfortunately, I think a lot of time we'd learn about the budget later on in the process. Like, that's never, like, nothing was ever normal there. It's like any kind of normal business process where you'd be like, here's never a brief. There was never a budget
Yeah.
given to us and also, but and so in some ways that was good, because we would say, well, here's a variety of different things that can be done.
Mhm.
This one's crazy expensive. This one, and this. And in some cases like that, just like the dream of it before it was the reality of what it actually could be,
Yeah.
helped to build it into a bigger thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest constraint for during that whole time was convincing the system that what we were proposing was a good idea, because there was just a huge amount of sort of gates to get through in
Yeah.
order for it to be completed. And in a big institution like the Jet Propulsion Lab, there just seemed to be more and more gates coming up all the time. And so that was like one of the major constraints. But the good thing was, I guess, about that is that, in that process, you can, like, build a lot of support as
Yeah.
well. And so that, like, got some of our projects actually bigger than they could have been done, or, bigger, smaller, whatever. But that impact, we'd always shoot for, like, how do we connect with people? And sometimes with that extra support, it actually made it
Yeah.
a lot better.
Sometimes ignorance is
Yeah.
bliss in those matters, right? Just go and
Yeah, I'd say
whatever
pretty much
happens.
always.
Yeah. Oh, no, we couldn't do that. Sorry. Here's the
Yeah, yeah,
first.
yeah. Oh, totally. I would say, because we, for a long time in our group, we were sort of the people that weren't supposed to be there. Just in people's minds, it didn't make sense. You have a bunch of engineers and scientists, and then you have this group of designers of these various backgrounds, like, trying to do
Our
something. And
kids. The
yeah,
yeah, like was there
yeah.
so I mean with those constraints, obviously there comes pressure and stress. Like, has there been a time or a moment where you looked at, like, God, this creativity piece of it's just not fun, but it's absolutely necessary. But, like, and going back to your grind, is like, what is your solution for something like that? Is it, you know, not wanting to grind it out, or grind, like tell me about a time where, like, you just didn't feel like this was fun, or you weren't enjoying that process. Was there ever, like, was it always perfect, or did you have one or two here?
Jordan, you wanna
Yeah.
go?
I think Jordan's
Oh, man.
smiling right there, so yeah.
Yeah.
So to put a finer point on the question is a time when we had to grind it out or things didn't go great. Yeah, every project. Like the like what are we talking about? Like so I was born with a bit of the how hard could it be gene, right? So like my brain will sign up for just about anything and pretty confident we can do it.
Yeah.
And so when you have that kind of workflow where you can dream anything and then sign up for it and then have a contract in front of you. Yeah, there's a lot of grind towards the end because it's like really hard to finish those things. But for us, what ends up it comes down to is your initial assumptions are proven wrong, and so the project you thought you had it's changed a little bit, and now you have to kind of live in this new world where the project's a little different than you thought, and the grind comes into like, well, how do we make this new data fit our current plan? And it's not always easy, and when you add to that like the ever changing target that is retail, like retail doesn't know what retail is today, like nobody knows what's going to happen in retail in the near future, or certainly not in the distant future. So you've got a lot of people with opinions on what should sell, where it should be, what kids should play with, and so on and so forth. And so the oftentimes the target moves, and when the target moves 7 times in the same project, it can feel a little bit like a grind, like a little bit of that magic has been whisked away out of it. And that's when you have to trust the process and know that smart people working hard will come up with great solutions, and you just keep your head down, don't yell at your friends, and make cool stuff. like the don't yell at your friends thing is a hard part. Like you have to remember
it's a good rule.
Something we tell ourselves all the time is release day is one day. You get one day in this project that's release day. So if you spend the whole project
not one day a week.
No. Each project gets one launch day. So if you're doing everything hoping that launch day is going to be amazing, you are wasting 6 of your months of your life on a project where you were miserable to have one fun day. Like you should enjoy the project. Be nice to the people you work with. Realize that every idea should have its fair review and consideration, and grind it out, but keep your chin up because you're going to spend a lot more time building than you are launching.
So true.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I would say for me that one of the biggest challenges when it gets hard is to really try to be like realistically open about how things might be able to change and still kind of fit into the area that you want it to grow into, and that's like a big thing. It was difficult for me at first, simply because like I think that one of the problems is being too precious with like a concept, um, because you can see how it's going to be and you really want it to be that way, but you kind of bring it up and along the line it starts to shift and change just by the nature of these different contexts that it goes through.
Yeah.
And what I found is one of the difficult parts of creativity, I guess, to your question, is that it's my own internal relationship of how I think it should be versus trying to keep it how it could be, like and fighting that was, I think, makes it very difficult. And when it becomes a little bit easier, is you kind of just accept it and then spend a huge amount of time trying to keep it pointed in the right direction. And that then, you know, and then in the end, you find out that, and this is my case, I find out that if I hadn't have gone through that process, my original idea of what I really wanted it to be may not have been as good as what it came out to be. So yeah, I guess it's sort of being super aware of how you would like it to end up, but constantly responding to it. It shifts and changes all the time to kind of re-navigate and reorient.
Yeah, it's sort of you're nudging it along in a direction,
Yeah,
hoping it gets to where you want it to be, but at least in the general area, right?
yeah, yeah. That's for me. It took me a while to figure that one out.
Yeah,
And
I'm still figuring it out. Don't worry, man.
yeah, I know.
Um, one of my favorite subjects to talk about on this is, and it's funny because I have a ton of self-doubt, and when I work on something or I'm sharing something or even just talking to people, it's that imposter syndrome, right? It's that voice in the back of your head, and I'm finding more and more like it's more common. Everyone thinks it's just them, but it's literally everybody has it. Everybody feels it. I was on a talk yesterday, and somebody said, "What are you kidding me?" It's like every minute of the day I'm doubting it, right? So it's, where you guys are in your careers and what you've done with your, in your own elements, like how does imposter syndrome rue its ugly head? What do you do about it? Or do you, I'm going to ask the question, just the dumb question in the room. Do you have imposter syndrome ever or self-doubt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
That's my
100%.
default
All right.
setting.
So
Yes,
knowing
also.
that, like, what do you do about it? Like, it's. I think most people think it's just them, but like, what do you guys do about it? How do you handle it?
I think you take more of the thing that poisons you until it becomes a tonic that girdles the world around you, right? Like you take like you just swim in the
Drink
deep
the
water.
poison.
Yeah, you drink the only way out is through, right? Like you
Yeah.
drink the like you just sit there and go, look. I mean, personally, me, like I'm a facts and evidence based guy. Like I really like exploring. Like sit there with yourself and go, look, is it possible that everyone's wrong about me, or is the do my results speak for themselves, and do my peers kind of keep coming back to me for a reason? Because it is so easy to doubt yourself, and the job of being a creative is a very lonely one. You're lonely because most of that work happens alone in a room, and you're lonely in your brain because it's just you against all those ideas in there. So it's like you just kind of have to, for me personally, I just try to sit with it, look at the evidence, and go, it's probably not true. We still have clients coming back, like, we're okay, we can do this again. But there is a huge amount of doubt that creeps in every time we tackle a new project, every time, like, we have a new client or a big ask. And, I think for me personally, just sitting with it and really evaluating, like, is it possible that, everyone's wrong about me and I can't do this? Or is it possible that we're going to do the same thing we always do, doubt ourselves until it's done, and then it's going to be great?
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, no, I totally agree with Jordan. Yeah, it's one of those. Yes, I 100% feel imposter syndrome all the time. I feel like I should be more prepared or know more or have, especially at JPL when you're around all these engineers and PhDs and
Lost Jordan.
think, oh, we lost Jordan.
What the heck? He'll be back. Keep going.
Yeah, okay, I'll keep going.
I didn't like his answer, so I kicked him out.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, do I have imposter syndrome? Yes, definitely. How do how do I get around it? Well, uh, I don't know if I ever will. That's the thing. And so, oh, Jordan's back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I cannot hear you. Sorry, gang. I'm so sorry. We had a good flow going, and now something, it just said I'm stopped recording and it kicked me out.
Yeah, it just
Let
kicked
me
you
see
out.
what's
Oh,
going
what
on.
the
I'll
hell
try to
was it?
come right back.
Oh, and he's gone again. This will be like the guest said, Jordan's in, Jordan's out. That's all right. He'll come back. So what do
Do you
you
want
do
me to
about it?
answer?
Like, how do you handle
Yeah.
it? Like, I mean, and I guess like on a creative spot, you are like an incredible talent. On the other side, you're working with some of the world's smartest people.
Yeah, no, I
You know,
know.
like
That's the thing.
that, and Jordan too. Like Jordan, you're like this incredibly creative guy, and you're working with some of the most incredibly talented people. At first at Apple, and then and so forth. So like that's intimidating as shit, man. Like holy cow.
Yeah, well, so part of the reason how I get over imposter syndrome in some ways is to like realize that they have imposter syndrome. And
Which
I'm like,
is
oh my
yeah,
God, you have imposter syndrome?
serious,
Like,
yeah.
how is that even possible? And then on the other side, that's why, I always love talking to kids. I spent, a whole bunch of time in my 20-year career at JPL, 7 years traveling around talking with kids, getting them to imagine building and designing on Mars and things like that. And I would always tell them how, and see that they have imposter syndrome, like talking to or thinking about science or getting, talking to NASA people and all this stuff. And then, I guess that helps me on both sides to realize that just everybody has it, and I sort of, if I'm able to step out of myself a little bit and just look at me, I can tell myself that, like, I almost tell the kid in me, like, just, if I were to tell some other person, what would I say? And it's going to be okay. Like, everybody has it, and so, it is a problem, though. I think that because I think the reason when it becomes like a real problem is when you shut down, like you don't, you tone down your creativity. You don't want to speak up. You don't ask the dumb question because you start to believe that it's a dumb question, you know, and And that's a problem when that happens, because then communication kind of shuts down. And um, you, yeah, I mean, that's like that's what you like. If there's a nightmare situation in creativity, it's when everybody embraces their own self-doubt.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that from the sense of I usually shut down at two parts of it, 2 points of it. One is at the very beginning. Well, actually, it's not even the beginning. It's like right after the beginning because I'm too naive necessarily to know to start a project. Kind of like in Jordan's head of like I'm just gonna go and figure it out. But then there's a point when I reach that I've kind of capped out of my capabilities or I don't understand how something's going. And that's when I freeze, right, David? That's like what you were saying. It's like I kind of freeze at that point. And so I do have to walk away. I do have to kind of take a break and then come back, either go online and figure something out or think it through and like, so forth. The second part of when I freeze is when I'm done. Like, what do I do
Mm.
with it? Do I share it? Do I, promote it? Do I get somebody else to look at it? And it's probably more out of fear of like looking stupid or like this isn't as good as I thought it would be, or it's already been whatever it is. And it's like those 2 points I think are the hardest points for me. Have you guys? How do you guys feel about it? Is it the start? Is it the middle? Is it the end? Is it somewhere in
This is such a
between?
great question because like it really
Well, this is why I have a
is why you have
podcast, to
it.
be honest.
So
But if you noticed, I haven't released a single episode yet. So there
there
I
you
am,
go,
right
right
on the
there.
cusp.
So I think this is like the
Yeah.
most important topic I think we could talk about for a few minutes because there, imposter syndrome gets so much attention, but RSD or rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is like the back end of that, it gets zero attention. And most people who are creatives, not most, but like a large there is a large propensity for people who come from kind of an ADHD or ADD background to kind of find themselves in the creative field, right? Yeah, like probably most of us on this call.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and our
Name someone in your generation that doesn't have that,
yeah,
though.
well, I mean,
Like,
look, I'm not here to be a clinician, but I'm just like I'm aware of the fact that like if you have a lot of ideas bouncing around your head, sometimes you become a creative. And one of the things that comes out of that background of being told to sit down, to slow down, to be quiet is you get something like you get something associated with that, which is called RSD or rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is the tail end of a project. I don't want to show anyone because if they don't like it, I shut down, right? Like instead of just like I'm not good enough, I shut down, which is like the middle part of the process. The end of it is if someone tells me it's bad, I shut down, and like the mounting fear of that rejection can really hold a lot of people with cool projects back from sharing them with the world. And I don't have a solution for this, but I'm aware of it and I experience it, and I hope collectively we develop a vocabulary and a process to defeat it because it is keeping a lot of great things out of people's hands because the people who make them are scared to show them. And it's really normal to feel that way. In fact, you should wonder or worry if you don't feel a little bit of that or a little bit of the imposter syndrome, because if you think everything, you can do everything and you're amazing, that's like not necessarily a creative outlook either, because, you're not giving weight to other people's ideas or the way things that could be that you didn't think of. So I think it is being a creative is a dance with your own dysfunction to some degree. Like you are constantly like, working with the things that are broken in you to make them better and to heal, like the people that will use whatever you make. And I think you have to have a relationship with those things and kind of dance with them back and forth and let them in and then push them out and learn from them. And I don't have an answer, but I do think it's really normal to experience both of the things you just described.
I equate it a
Agreed.
lot like how parents show their kids on social media, where it's like everyone's like, "Oh my God, your kids are amazing." Nobody puts the crap up there, right? The
Yeah.
spazzes, the breaking down, the fail. Like it's kind of like everything's perfect in our world. So like, and I always respond the same way. I love my kids. I'm so proud of them, but
Yeah.
man, there's a lot of muck in there too. Come on,
Sure.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
David,
Yeah.
what about you? It's like you like you said, you're in that room with these super smart people, and they happen to have the that same anxiety. Like as an engineer, like has that rocket science has ever come to you and said, "Oh man, I don't know if I want to show you this like equation that I came up with. I might, it's like this long giant thing on a board." Like no, but like seriously, like is there that fear of showing something in the end, or is it that you're like you can't wait to do it, or how do you respond?
Yeah. I mean, I think. I think that they're definitely, well, I'll just speak for me personally. So whenever I make something on my own, and I'm going to separate this from the work that I've done at JPL and things like that. I think that it's sort of like an intense version of that fear that because when you do things as a group or you do things for a larger project and you release it, it's sort of like there's a destined moment where it's going to go out. And in
there's
some
safety
cases,
in
like I
numbers.
don't have any part of that,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, whoa, what's happening? And I may feel weird, but then I don't get a chance to make that choice, right? When it's my own thing, it's totally different because I do get a chance to make that choice, and I do commonly fall into that problem too. Like, will people like it? Especially if it's something that's personal to me that I've done on my own. And how do I fight it? Is well, which I guess sometimes I just wait a little while and then just do it. And I think it's the getting over that has been a process of it becoming less and less of a problem over time the more I've done it. So it's sort of like this, I don't know what the psychological term is for that, but
Jordan
No, I
does. Don't
don't.
worry.
No.
Jordan will.
yeah, Jordan, our psychologist, our expert. No, but it's just sort of like, well, you start to realize that, that it's actually not that big a deal. And there are people, if you're sharing it on Instagram or whatnot, it feels good when people start going like, "Oh, that's really cool," and you realize that nobody is out there trying to tell you it's not, and that, um, yeah, I think that's how I get over it. But I do definitely suffer from that rejection sensitivity, and man, oh man, I wish the whole world, whoever has that, would just let it all go because uh, I don't know why that happens. Maybe it happens when you're a kid and I don't know.
It's like putting
But
your hand up and asking that dumb question in class, right? And like getting
yeah,
F's or, I
yeah,
mean, I wish you hear these artists, like musicians especially. Oh, I wrote this for me. Say, I wrote for me. I don't really care what anybody thinks. I don't know if I necessarily believe them, like that. That's like I just wanted to write this song and put it out there. I don't really care what anybody thinks. I don't know, like if that's true, but like, do you wish you had that trait to be able to say, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm just gonna put it out.
no, I actually really, I think that might change the way I approach things a lot because I actually I like to make things that people will appreciate. Like that's part of the creative process for me, and maybe that's just in the nature of the types of things that I do. But it's sort of like when you're thinking about the experience of how people are going to interact with it, or
Yeah,
you and I can imagine like for games too, and like you want it to be fun, right? You want people to be attracted to them. So yeah, no, I to me that has like the huge value. And so yeah, in some ways that can backfire because it actually emphasizes, you really do care how people care about it, and that's sort of part of the goal.
yeah, I love
So if you ever hear me saying I don't care, that means I'm probably lying. I do care a
I
lot.
still want you to know I
Well, I
care.
do think there's a
Yeah.
difference, like where you are in the process. Like in the brainstorming process, I think it's
Yeah.
very good to consider make this for me because there are enough of yous out there that and by that what I mean is like if I'm interested in this niche topic and I want to make it about add this little detail or whatever this is, then there probably are enough people who are also interested in that thing, or your passion will inspire their curiosity into this thing. Like if I make it for something I'm really interested in, that's very different than saying I don't care if anybody else likes it. It's saying like this is interesting to me and I think my passion will bring you along with me. But in the early parts of the process, I think it's okay to explore those things, maybe even helpful. But if anybody is finishing a project and says, I don't care what anybody else thinks about it, this is for me, it's like, yeah, that's fine. There's a place for that. It's called a journal. You don't need to be like,
Yeah.
you can put it out in the world, that's fine, but that isn't the work I get to do. Like,
You're not gonna sell a lot of games if nobody
I have to care
cares.
deeply about like it being interesting, and we spend a ton of time on something we call the first playthrough experience. Like when you get it out of the box, from the moment you pick up the rules to the moment you're done playing, that has to be quick,
Yeah.
interesting, and delightful the whole way through. And if you don't care about that, then that's okay. Don't make things for other people. Make things for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like,
That's why they got
yeah.
solitaire. That's why they got,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no wrong way to
But
make something,
the
but yeah.
one I was going to say, well, one kind of funny thing about it is that, it means a lot to, of course, you're making it for other people. One of the things that I think made it harder for me when I was a little bit younger is I didn't really accept the fact that there's just a whole bunch of different kinds of people and a whole bunch of different kinds of thinkers around me all the time, you know? And I didn't really accept that. I would always, be referencing things. I'm like, you know what I mean? And people are like, no, I have no idea what you mean, you know? And then once
Oh,
I kind of
that's so
flipped that and
deflating,
said,
though, right?
yeah,
Like,
but once I flipped that
yeah,
and said like, oh, well, I think it's good to know I'm a different thinker than other people, and that's okay. Maybe that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and sometimes maybe that's why people like what I'm doing,
Mm.
And when I started to think about it from that perspective, it became a lot easier to understand that people might not get it and deal with that rejection sensitivity, because it's sort of like, oh, well, maybe it's not rejection. Maybe they just don't fully understand the angle at which you're coming at
yeah.
something. And but that really helped me a lot, is just saying like, hey, I'm everybody's different,
Yeah.
How many
essentially.
years
And
in,
I'm
like,
part of
And
that
you can use
difference.
that to as an opportunity to put on ramps for those people. Like if this is an interesting train going in an interesting direction, they just can't get up to speed to get on. Like give them an on ramp. You can find like on ramps for them through that discovery process for sure.
how long into your career did you figure that out? Was it, I'm guessing it's like when you started managing people. But like, when did you discover that there's different
For
thinkers, people have different point of
me,
views?
oh, you know, I would say probably like 5 years into
Oh,
my projects,
okay.
where because it took a while. I mean, I would have, I think my default assumption was that, and maybe it comes from a hope of mine, because I always love to integrate. I like to kind of bring people in, and we treat each other like we're all doing things together and thing. But there's like, I think what I started the nuance of that is to, oops, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah,
The
we can.
nuance of that is, did you hear that? Okay. Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, I'll go back a little bit. Is that, I love inclusion. I like setting a scene where people feel comfortable brainstorming and accepting their ideas and things. And I think, you know, part of that problem was that, is psychologically thinking that we're all thinking in the same way, right?
Yeah.
And but to understand that you can create a sense of trust where everybody's working together, but at the same time understand that people are thinking differently and they may not understand. That took me a little bit to
Can
navigate,
I
Yeah.
step?
and it just makes it much
Can I
richer,
jump
I
in with
think.
a
Yeah.
hyper practical thing? Because like I've gone through the same kind of journey, where it's like I did not think like you just assume when you have kind of
Well, you think everyone has common sense like you do,
or
right?
just
Yeah,
sees the
right.
world like
And I
you.
don't mean that. I mean, you funny you laugh because I totally know what you mean, what you're thinking when I say that. That everyone else is dumb and we got common sense. But it's like it's your common sense from your point of
Or you
view,
think
right,
everyone
George?
knows what edamame is. Like it doesn't have to like, be common sense as much as just like we've lived different
Yeah.
experiences.
We know what it is. We just don't know how to
Yeah.
spell
Yeah,
it.
that's also probably true.
Yeah.
No, but like one of the things that we do is we collect 777 lists. This is like a practice of ours. Anytime we meet somebody new or anytime we're able to, we have some downtime, we ask them to fill out a 777. And what that is are 7 things that you love, 7 things that you hate, and 7 things that scare you. And then you have them write your name, your email, your age, right? And the reason we do that is because every one of those things is a kernel of a big emotion. And one of our tenets is we start with big emotions in mind. Because like even if you write down I'm scared of spiders, probably a pretty good chance you don't want a spider toy, right? But if we can make a spider plush that's super cute, now we've tapped into a big emotion. And not only that, but we've taught you how to have a different relationship with this thing that you were originally scared of, right? And now you may feel empowered to approach that topic now because you have a different relationship with it. So we start with big emotions, and then by doing that, you start learning what other people avoid, what other people hate, what other people love, and you realize like there's things on that list that I would have never even thought of, or I don't even know what that word means, like and just trying to ask people about their experience in a
Why?
formalized way.
Why seven? That's a lot.
Because I like nice
Seven's
low
a big.
prime numbers.
Like,
I don't know. Like,
that's a lot of fears to figure
I
out,
don't
right?
know.
I laughed when you said spiders because I made a shirt for my wife The only thing you have to fear is fear itself. And then it says dot 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 and spiders
Also spiders.
because
Yeah.
she's scared of
That was one of the
spiders.
first things
So
my wife made me do when we were dating. It was like, if we get married and we have kids, they're not allowed to prank me with spiders. Like, that's a legitimate clause.
that I will say, like that woman knew what she was getting
Yeah.
into, right? When she met, that statement. So, all right. So this is conversations could go on and on and on. And honestly,
Yeah.
like, I love it. I wanted to get into some like practical stuff, and we can just do this real quick. But like we've been talking about how creativity feels. We've been talking about what's our fears and emotions and all that cool stuff. But let's talk about practicality. Like what do you do to be creative? Like how do you like? Do you have a process? Do you have a tactics that you take on, like in first thing in the morning, or to start your day, or is it later? When are you most creative in your mind?
I mean, if I knew that, like, this is a big question. Uh, I mean,
That's the easiest of the five. I got seven. I have. I have seven.
I
Seven and
sleep with a
seven.
notepad behind my bed, right? Because like sometimes I'll wake up with ideas, like I mean, I keep pen and paper around me all the time because you never know. One of the things I do that people find weird, I walk the hardware store at least twice a week. I just walk the hardware
Yeah.
store. Um,
Without
Oh,
buying.
interesting.
Without buying
no, I
anything.
buy something often, yeah,
Yeah.
but oftentimes like I'll just walk it
An expensive creative endeavor
because
there.
like here's the thing. Creativity is not a measurement of good. It's a measurement of different, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so how different are you? And so like we don't get to decide if the things we make are good. All that we can do is decide if they are different or try to make them think that's different. Different is, what is it? Better is always different, but different isn't always better. You don't get to choose. But when you walk around, like for me, a hardware store, it's got a lot of things I don't know what they are, but I can start to like envision what that thing could do, and maybe that's not what it does, but it's a weird shape, and now it's in my brain somewhere, and like kind of and there's just a lot of different shapes and weird things that I don't understand, and sometimes just having diverse and interesting input leads to diverse and interesting output. So put yourself in an unfamiliar environment where your brain doesn't know what to do and sees things it doesn't recognize, and then just let it dream for a minute. Like that's one way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave, where do you get your creative energy?
Big let it dream, like just totally following up what Jordan said is that making sure I have time to dream and just imagine and space out sometimes and just think, let my mind wander. I think that's like for me, that's like the biggest thing. I get a lot of my inspiration comes from music. And so like I need just some kind of quiet spaces or spaces, not necessarily quiet, but spaces where I can have the freedom to just think and allow things to come up. When I try to force it, it's not usually doesn't happen. But that's one of the things. Yeah, and then what else? I think for creativity, it is getting excited with other people also for me.
Yeah.
Like I it's a huge difference to work alone for me than with other people. And I think what helps me like free up my mind is humor and laughing. And so like just tossing around ideas with somebody and thinking about how ridiculous it is or how serious it is or and just basically allowing yourself to play, create, that I think that's the most important thing for me is just having enough room and enough like freedom to be playful with an idea,
Mm-hmm.
and then it starts to become more fun and better.
The other thing
Yeah, I like
I would
that.
add one more thing to that, which is don't let. Like, oftentimes when we're being creative, it's not just we're being creative towards.
Why are we in
Well,
quotes? Why are we in
because I think there is the thing we think it is and the thing it is, right? Which is we think of it as a person sitting down dreaming of anything, and really what they're dreaming of is how to solve that problem there, right? It's not. It's very rarely
Mm,
ethereal dreams, right? So when you're trying to be creative, quotes, to solve a problem, you're often thinking about the problem, and often like the problem you're solving is dictating your solution. Like there's this classic engineering dilemma, which is don't let the solution be baked into the brief. In other words, if you go to a design firm and say build me a better lawnmower, what they're going to do, whatever they're designed for you, is going to be vaguely lawnmower shaped, right? Like, but if you come to them and say, grass is this tall, and I need it to be this tall always. Now goats are in play. Like, we have all kind. I can design a grass that doesn't grow taller than that. Like, so many more solutions get baked into the brief now. So what we want to do is just be careful that go back to first principles. What is the problem really asking me to solve? And have I baked any solutions into the brief already that I can remove and let myself go further and dream a little bit bigger?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great point. I'm guessing, David, you experienced a lot of that as well.
Yeah, and I was just trying to think of another thing that I was trying to think of, like, what other things have I done to like improve creativity? And I think without really trying is to, I mentioned being around other people, but like the right kind of people that would allow me to be me. And one of the things is the me part of me, I think, is just being comfortable with free association, like in a project. So like we may be talking about, and that's something we need to do with comments, but in the back of my mind, there's like this movie that I saw when I was 7 years old and I'd always think that these kind of inserted ideas would get in the way. But once I started, well, I thought maybe they're coming up for a reason, and so when I just say, oh, I saw this movie when I was 7 years old, and just talk it out and not be shy about it, and just kind of, and realize it may not seem like it has anything to do with the kind of creativity or anything that we're doing at hand, but people may respond to it and give something back. And it actually usually helps me. So I guess kind of free association and allowing it to kind of just be a part of the flow, that usually helps me a lot. And so I try to, I don't know what that might be called. It's just trying not to edit your thought process, or letting your unconscious mind kind of be a part of the experience.
And
I used to do this drill early in my career. I would just get magazines out when people had magazines lying around. And when I was doing a brainstorm, I would literally just be flipping through the magazine. It could be any magazine. And it had pictures and big headlines, and I wouldn't read anything. It was literally just, and I would just start writing down, right? Anything that came to mind. It didn't have to do with what's on the magazine. It was literally just trying to like free associate, kind of what you're saying, David, of like anything that popped in my head at that time. And then sooner or later, you've got this couple pages of just junk. And some of it's useful, some of it's not. Some of it you're like, I don't even know what I meant there. What does three bears mean, right? But like the idea is like you're just getting your brain warmed up and moving.
To go back to David's point about music, there's a lot of kind of things we can learn from the music world that apply to creativity, because that's kind of one of the more pure expressions of it. There's a great jazz musician, and his name escapes me at the moment, but he used to have a deck of cards called Oblique Strategies. Are you familiar with this, David?
Yeah, no, that's Brian Eno.
I couldn't think of his name. Thank you. It's Brian Eno. Okay. So Oblique Strategies, for those of you who are for the uninitiated, Oblique Strategies were a series of cards that just had weird ideas on them. It would be like, play it backwards, or pretend like you're underwater, or whatever. And then the whole point was, when the jazz ensemble, and jazz is kind of one of the more freer, like, pieces of musical expression because of the amount of improvisation that's involved. Then he would just say, if somebody was stuck, he'd just pick up one of the cards and say, play it like you were a tuba, and if the clarinet just has to figure out what that means, and that kind of unsticks your brain for a minute. So we have an Oblique Strategies deck that we've come up with for us, that's like, toy related stuff. Like, if it's for a girl, make it for a boy. If it's for a boy, make it for a girl, or or literally build it upside down, or what, all these weird things that may not help at all, but it does unstick the room. And brainstorms have their own weather systems. Like, if you have someone who is a bit Debbie Downer-ish, then the room gets quiet and collapses. And if you have somebody flipping through a magazine, that changes it. So making sure that the weather is right in the room really helps. And to David's point, you have to trust the people you're in the room with, or you won't be free to do those silly, weird things.
My problem in the brainstorms, like especially when it's like you're in the corporate world, I wanted to contribute so much. Like, I was like always like, I'm diving in with that, and I have to pull myself back, not because I'm more creative, not because I have more ideas, but it's because like I have to be cognizant of letting other people talk and letting other people's ideas flow. And that was always my challenge, was like I just was so energetic and excited to do stuff. And going back to what you were saying, David, is like, you have to realize other people aren't on the same level as you. Sometimes they need to like a pregnant pause, or just to be quiet so that they can jump in and allow that. So, this is, I could go on for hours.
Well,
with
this
you
is the
guys,
halfway
like,
point,
honestly.
right?
Yeah, this is like, we should do a part 2 in season 2 or something like that. I really enjoyed this. I do have one last question for you, and I warned you it was coming, and nobody reads my notes, but it sounds like you guys did. What would you name this podcast? Because we don't have a name, and I was too chicken to put a name out there. So give me an idea of what you would call this, and it could be wacky, it could be funny, it could be truthful, whatever you want, but throw out a name.
No, I didn't prepare for this part.
So creative. So creative.
Well, how about, since you guys are both toy makers to some extent, right? Or game makers and fun makers and
This is the first, by the way, this is the first guest I've had on that is a game maker.
Oh, is that true?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so it doesn't,
Really?
I know where you were going with it. So
Yeah. Well, how about this? Everything's a toy.
Mm-hmm.
all right.
Playful thoughts.
Oh,
Playful thoughts. That's better. That's better.
all right.
Yeah.
We'll see if it makes it to the final.
Yeah.
cut,
Didn't I
right?
buy you a book on how to name things? Didn't I just ship you a book on how to name
You
things?
did.
Couldn't that be my entry?
And
Just that book?
It is up there, stairs, waiting for me by my bed. You know, like, I am gonna read it. Oh, that was horrible.
That's so funny.
Yes, thank you for that lovely gift. All right. Thank you to my guest, Jordan Goddard. Honestly, you guys, this was a lot of fun, and I think I got a ton out of it. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Let's do it again. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah. Would love to.
Amazing. Absolutely. For sure. Anytime you ask.
All right. This podcast needs a name. Still doesn't have a name, but we have a book and we have 2 really good ideas. So we'll come back to it, and maybe we'll change the name at some point. Thanks.
Very good.
All right. Thank you.